Hey guys, so this is a new video idea I have in mind. I decided to do it now because of the huge ramifications that this upcoming game for the Chargers has, and also because of a certain game that happened in the past that had a personal impact on me. But that's a story for another day. I don't know if this is going to be a regular weekly thing just because my schedule is pretty packed right now, but we are going to give it our best shot. We're going to try. Oh yeah, and sorry for the noise in the background. It's currently raining outside and I have the windows open because I like it when it's cold. I'm a SoCal guy who likes the cold. So what? Alright, Chargers Jaguars. Let's talk about the standings first, as well as other key games that could impact the Chargers moving forward. As you can see on the screen, the Chargers are currently second place in the AFC West at 7-3, with the Broncos being one game ahead of them in first place at 8-2, and the Chiefs being right behind them in third place at 5-4. The Chargers overall are fifth place in the AFC and could realistically still win the number one seed, or at least win their division and get a home playoff game. The key games I want to highlight are games in which the AFC team has a realistic chance of losing and isn't some long shot like picking the Titans over the Texans. That's not happening. The least important of the key games is Steelers and Bengals, and really the reason is because the Chargers already beat the Steelers. So even if they both finish with the same record, the Chargers will hold tiebreakers. This is more just to remove pressure off the Chargers. Although I will say, a lot of Dodgers are going to be very upset if they don't see TJ Watt in the playoffs. I mean, just look at how much of a hard worker he is. Look at those muscles. Look at him. Look at them! The next key match is going to be Buccaneers and Bills, and I'm not going to lie, I think the Bills take this one. Even though the Buccaneers are a good team themselves, the Bills are at home, and I just find it hard to believe that they'll play terrible for the second week in a row after their embarrassing loss in Miami. So I'm going to take the Bills on this one. The most important key match is going to be Chiefs versus Broncos. It's an AFC West matchup with the first place Broncos and third place Chiefs. If the Chargers win, this game becomes massive. If the Broncos lose, the Chargers will move into first place, while if the Chiefs lose, they can essentially be blocked from winning the AFC West by being 3 games behind the Chargers and 4 games behind the Broncos. This is going to sound weird, but I actually want the Broncos to win this game because I do not want to see another Super Bowl with this guy in it. Or this girl. Please don't let it happen. Alright guys, let's talk about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert has had himself an amazing year. He started off strong during the 3-0 start with huge wins against the Chiefs and Broncos. He went through a slump during the middle of these first 10 games, but he's since rebounded with strong performances against the Vikings, Titans, and Steelers. One reason he's been able to rebound is because of the emergence of Keanu Vidal, who's just absolutely introduced himself as an amazing running back. Vidal has had some really strong games against the Dolphins, Vikings, and Steelers, although in the other games, Vidal was very lackluster in those games, so we definitely need him to be more consistent on a game-by-game basis. Let's talk about the receivers. The receivers, just like the running backs, have been heavily aided by the emergence of Orlando Gadsden. Gadsden has really emerged as a top tight end option and legitimate deep threat for Herbert. Ladd McConkey, of course, is repeating his amazing rookie year and has been finding Enzo a lot recently, so expect that against the Jaguars. Quentin Johnson has also been playing really good. And I will admit, I was one of those that called Quentin Johnson a draft bust after his first 2 seasons. So, I admit that. I apologize for that. I'm sorry. Let's move on. And of course, we have the now I can say franchise receptions leader in Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has slowed down in recent weeks, but is still a reliable pass target. All of that sounds like a really good offensive line. So you're probably saying to yourself, how could any of this possibly go bad? Like, what could ruin this offense? Guys, if you guys have been following the Chargers this year, you probably know what it is. The offensive line. I gotta say, this is probably the worst offensive line I have ever seen since I started watching football back in 2014. Like, I don't think I have seen an offensive line as bad as this one. Like, the only ones I can think of that come close to being as bad as this are probably the 49ers offensive line in 2014 and 2016. Those offensive lines were really bad. But no, I think this one's worse. This one is so bad. It is so bad. And with Rashawn Slater and Joel out for the year, that just basically means Herbert's going to be getting pressured all throughout this season and even in the playoffs. So it's going to be really tough to even win playoff games because pretty much all the teams in the playoffs have good defenses. Justin Herbert has been sacked 34 times in 10 games. 34 times! He's been sacked 34 times in 10 games! That is crazy! That is crazy! Phillip Rivers was a statue quarterback, and I love Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was my favorite player growing up, but he was a statue quarterback, and yet the most times he got sacked in the season was 49 times. And that was bad enough already. That was bad enough, but it seems like Herbert's on pace to get sacked like 60 times. And he's a mobile quarterback. He's a quarterback that can move around and use his legs to extend plays. I don't know. It's legitimately crazy how bad this offensive line is. And here's the thing. He's been sacked 11 times in the past 2 games. 11 times! He got sacked. He's been sacked 11 times. No, I'm not joking. Going into the Steelers game, I legitimately thought that TJ Watt had a chance to break the single game sack record. Because that's how bad this offensive line is. That's how bad they are. They are so bad. And this might be the one thing that would literally hold the entire team back. This offensive line is so terrible that even though the rest of the units on the team are good, quarterback, running back, receivers, defense, whereas the defensive line, linebackers, and DBs, even though all of that is really great in my opinion, the offensive line is so terrible. It's so terrible that it can literally hold the entire team back and be the reason why we lose games in the playoffs, or heck, we end up just simply missing the playoffs entirely. Because down the stretch, we're going to go up against some tough pass rushes. We're going to go up against the Eagles pass rush, the Texans #1 scoring defense, the Chiefs who are always fielding a good defense, and of course the Broncos top defense as well. So we're gonna go up against some pretty tough defenses, so we're not out of the woods yet. The best way to describe this offensive line and what it does to the Chargers is I made this comparison to my brother, and I told him how, imagine if you had a team you had a basketball team and you had Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird all on the same team. Sounds like a pretty good team, right? All right. But then let's say for the final 2 starters, I gave you Anthony Bennett and Ben Simmons. Do you see how now that team just all of a sudden became worse now? Even though you have Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson on the same team, do you notice how now by forcing you to have Ben Simmons and Anthony Bennett on that team, the team just got worse now as a result? That's basically what the offensive line of this Chargers does. This offensive line is literally just holding the entire team back. And like I said, there is little to no help that's going to come because Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are out for the year. They're out for the year. They're not playing at all. So yeah, this offensive line is terrible. It's going to be the reason why we lose games. So at this point, the Chargers just kind of have to expect that this is how bad the offensive line is going to be, and they have to just game plan around it. At this point, there's really no excuse for why they lose because of their offensive line. Because at this point, you kind of have to expect it, and you have to game plan around it. That's the goal of the head coach. That's the whole point of the head coach. The head coach has to come up with that. So let's just hope the offensive line doesn't give up 4 sacks at least. Can they at least hold the Jaguars defensive line to just 4 sacks? Who, by the way, the Jaguars do have a good defensive line. They do have a really good defensive line. So let's just hope so. So you guys heard me talk about it briefly when I was ranting about the offensive line, but the defense really has just been phenomenal. Really, their only really bad game where they got shredded was against the Colts, and the Colts, surprisingly have one of the best offense, probably the best offense in the league, by Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor, who, by the way, somehow is still not the leading contender for MVP despite having 17 total touchdowns, but that's a topic for another day. But this defense has been really solid. And going into this year, I was definitely really concerned about the defense when we let Joey Bosa go. And I became even more concerned when Khalil Mack went down and was out for several games. But the other guys on the team have definitely stepped it up. But guys like Derwin James, Tui Pelotu, Dan Hanley, like all those guys have really stepped up and they have really turned this into one of the better defenses in the league. While everyone is talking about the Broncos defense, the Texans defense, the Chargers defense is low-key very underrated. And like I said, the only game where they actually got shredded and actually just couldn't get a stop if their lives depended on it was the Colts game. And heck, even the Broncos got shredded by the Colts offense. So that shows you just how good the Colts offense is. But here's the thing, aside, if you take that game out, this Charger defense has just been playing really great. I think last I checked that they were 8th in points allowed and 4th in yards allowed, which that just goes to prove my point just how great this defense is. And it is essentially picking up where they left off, even though last year they were number 1 in points allowed. And so technically they took a step back, but they're still really they're still really amazing. And yeah, that's a good reason why the Chargers are 7-3, because in a lot of their games, the Chargers offense has definitely underperformed. I think we definitely wanted to see the Chargers score more points, but the defense has really picked up the slack, and it's amazing that we have a great defense like that. As for the Jaguars right now are currently 5-4. And looking at just their basic numbers in terms of where their offense and defense ranks, it's not hard to see why they're 5-4. The Jaguars right now ranked 18th in points scored and 19th in yards, while on defense they're 20th in points and 23rd in yards. But don't let those numbers fool you, because they do actually have some pretty impressive wins against the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And let me remind you, that win against the 49ers, that was back when they still had Fred Warner on the defense. So, don't use the excuse of, oh, their defense was banged up by that point, because they had Fred Warner still when they had beaten the Niners. The Jaguars, the thing about them is they can really have these games where they just click and just fire on all cylinders, but then they do have these games where they just completely falter, like they did last week against Houston, where they had a 29-10 lead and blew it against Davis Mills. What the heck is that thing right there? The Jaguars, of course, are led by quarterback Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence has had a very interesting career. He was the number 1 overall pick, and so far he's had some solid production, but a lot of people have been, let's just say, they've been kind of underwhelmed by Trevor Lawrence, because even though he's been the number 1 overall pick, the Jaguars still are just in this weird lingo where they constantly stay around that average range, although last year they were pretty terrible last year. But however, it is worth noting that the Jaguars' one playoff win with Trevor Lawrence came in that infamous game, to just put it simply. I don't think I need to beat you guys over the head over it anymore about what that game was and just how terrible it was just watching it. I will say the Jaguars' top weapon, in my opinion, Travis Hunter, he is out for the season, so he's not going to be playing in this game, which it sucks in the sense that you hate to see a good player like that go down in his rookie season. But even then, I had heard that the Jaguars, they were having trouble using him and trying to find ways to utilize him. So it sucks to see a great player like that go down with a season-ending injury. But like in terms of the game, and in terms of like the Chargers being able to win, it does as like bad as it might sound, it helps the Chargers win and stuff. But of course, it still sucks to see a good player like that go down with an injury. Honestly, I looked at the Jaguars receivers and running backs. I did not know any of them. Like, I literally did not know any of them. In fact, even as I was making this video, I still forgot their names. I still forgot their names because I literally don't know any of them. The only one that I knew was Travis Hunter, but he's out for the season. So it's like the Jaguars, you can kind of see why their offense is pretty backed up, even with Trevor Lawrence, why they're underperforming, even with the number 1 overall pick Trevor Lawrence, is because like they really have no weapons on that side of the ball. So we finally got to that point in the video. Prediction. Who's gonna win? Here's the thing. If the Chargers were playing at home and they had Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt playing, I would say Chargers. Easily, I would say Chargers win. Chargers win. But because we are missing Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, and we're playing at Jacksonville, I don't know. This game is kind of a toss up for me because I just know the Chargers offensive line is just gonna really make it difficult for the Chargers. And the thing is that every aspect of the Chargers versus the Jaguars indicates that the Chargers should win. They have the better head coach, they have the better quarterback, they have the better running backs, they have the better receivers, they have the better defense. The only thing the Jaguars have right now is just the home field advantage, and that's it. So the Chargers have the better everything except for one thing, and that is the offensive line. And the thing is, the offensive line is just so terrible to the point where it's almost as if it doesn't even matter how good everything else of the Chargers is. If that offensive line plays terrible and just allows another 5 or 6 sacks, it's over. It's over. We're not winning that game. Honestly, this is going to be very similar to the Steelers and Chargers game, where really it's going to come down to who turns the ball over more. Whoever can protect the football more is going to win this game. If the Chargers can go the entire game without turning the ball over, they will win. If they turn the ball over more than the Jaguars, they will lose. Now, granted, yes, I am aware that the Chargers in that wildcard game, they have +5 turnover ratio, but lost. I guarantee that's not going to happen again. That's not going to happen again. If Chargers get a +5 turnover ratio in this game, they're winning this game. So I guess my final prediction, it's really tight, but I think Chargers win 24-17. I think that's the final score. I think the offense does enough. They don't turn the ball over, and they do enough, and the defense just does its thing because they're not put in harm's way, and they get a couple turnovers off, or they get a couple takeaways off the Jaguars. And yeah, that's it. That's my prediction. Tell me what you guys think of this. Do you guys like me making prediction videos like this, or preview videos like this? I would like to continue this as long as my schedule doesn't overwhelm me. Like even right now, I'm actually shooting this really late at night. That's why my tone of voice might be a little bit lower because I'm shooting this really late. But yeah, but let me know what you guys think. And of course, I'll see you guys after the game on Sunday. Hopefully after a Chargers win. I'll see you next time.